What's going on, guys, and welcome back to the channel. As today, a week's worth of research finally gets put to use. Over the past week, I have done nothing but play Dead by Daylight in order to see who is the most popular survivor in DBD. Now, over the course of DBD's existence, at the time of this recording, we have seen 36 survivors introduced to the game, but that 36 becomes 44 when you count the legendary alternate skins. So how did I do this? After every single match over the last week, I tallied the survivors I saw in order to determine who was the most played survivor. So when I played Killer, that added 4 new survivors every time. When I played Survivor, that added 3 new survivors every time. If I played with a duo, it added 2. You get how it goes. This led to being over 500 different survivors being seen over the course of this week. And these are the results that I gathered from the least popular survivor going up to the first. But first, don't forget to help me out by hitting that like button and helping me even further by hitting subscribe if you aren't already. We're on the road to 2,000 subscribers, and I know it's a long shot, but I would love to hit it by the end of summer. So go ahead, help me out, hit that button. It's free, and it goes a long way. Now, with a week's worth of games coming in dead last, I could not find a single survivor who played either James Sunderland or Jonathan Byers. And while I'm convinced some may exist out there, not seeing a single one over this past week has these two tied for dead last. Moving up from there, we have Sybil, who was encountered once in the first game that I played when gathering this data, and then was never seen again. In a 3-way tie following her is Chris, Jonah, and Lisa. I wasn't surprised to see Lisa, as I know she's a pretty rare choice, and it makes sense for Jonah, as I believe he's arguably the least liked original survivor. However, as a Resident Evil option, I was pretty shocked to see Chris this low. Now, despite DBD Twitter's best efforts to show her some love, it would appear she still isn't that popular, as next comes in with Hattie, which was quite disappointing. I was hoping to see a bit more of her, as the demand for cosmetics came for her, and unfortunately just still not that scene. More popular than her brother, we have the next Redfield coming in with Claire, who tied both Tap and Jeff for this spot. And the most disappointing thing to me here is that there aren't more Jeff players in the game, because I don't think I've ever had a bad experience with a Jeff. They're just always like a wholesome survivor, so it's nice to see them. Standing alone in the next spot comes another Resident Evil character, as Carlos has proved to be more popular than the Redfields. Moving on from that, we have another tie with Yoichi and Sheva coming in their own tier. And honestly, I was surprised to see Yoichi, even though he's still pretty low overall. I wasn't expecting him to be ahead of some of these other ones, so it's a pleasant surprise here. Now, despite being one of the 2 most recent survivors released to the game, Renato actually came in pretty low. Tied alongside, we have some licenses with Quentin and Lori, and then Jane is here too. And then in the most common spot, we have 5 different characters who tied for our next position, with Bill, Steve, Felix, Adam, and Jake as the lowest of the original survivors, all showing up the same amount of times as games were played over the past. Next, we have 2 pretty common survivors. This one didn't surprise me to see that these are pretty low, middle of the pack, with Yunjin and Elodie both coming in next. Now, despite the Forged in Fog chapter not being popular, many people not enjoying the night, next we do have Vittorio, so it's nice to see that at least one of the 2 characters is succeeding from this chapter. Next we have the second of the Lyra siblings, as Talita comes in here with Nancy tied with her, ending our run on Stranger Things character. Now, it's been a few moments since we said the name of a Resident Evil character. Well, let's get that out of the way. Now, when I came up with this idea, I was expecting Leon to be very high. So him being down here is very shocking to me. I didn't expect him to be this low. Coming in tied with Silent Hill's own Cheryl. And we have Behavior's gambling icon, Ace, in this list as well. Now, we left Tap back early on. But good thing in this game, there are 2 survivors named David. So we have David King coming in for this spot, tied with Yui, and I feel like he normally would have been lower, and I didn't take into account current tome challenges, but Ash also ties David and Yui for this spot. Now we start a small streak here of survivors who didn't have any ties, and they stood alone. Starting with Jill. Honestly surprised that there's still some more Resident Evil characters ahead of her. Next being Rebecca, who ever so slightly beat her out, but at the end did beat her out. Next we move on to one of the original 4, so it makes sense to see him this high, and unfortunately I don't know why Jake didn't come in, but we have Dwight standing here. Now for this next spot, I was genuinely shocked. I didn't think she was this popular. We have Zarina, who tied with Kate for appearances in this location. Now, we're getting close to our top 5. There are 6 survivors who have not been revealed. And I think it's time we get into that. But we have to leave one of them out. So in 6th place, it's Meg. Meg was the 6th most popular survivor seen during this data collection. And, man, that is way too many Meg heads for my liking. Now we move into the final 5. And in 5th place, we have the last of the Resident Evil characters, as Ada finally makes her appearance on this list. Ada had been wanted ever since the first Resident Evil chapter came out with Nemesis, Jill, Leon. She was wanted forever. So her popularity when she was released in Project W seems like it's here to stay. In 4th place, we have the last of the original 4 survivors, as Claudette comes in here, beating out everyone that she came into the game with. Now we're getting ready to hand out our medals, and for bronze, our 3rd place medal goes to Michaela, which shows that even though people loved Circle of Healing, despite its nerfs, Michaela's play is because people just like Michaela as a character, which explains why she is here. Now, we're down to the last 2. And we introduce our 2nd place character, which was Nia, who was neck and neck over the course of this week with our 1st place winner until the last few days. And honestly, it makes sense. I see a Nia almost every other game, it feels like. Nia is very popular. It gets a lot of cosmetics. It makes sense to see Nia here. But she still ends up in 2nd place, which leaves 1st place to the one, the only, the queen of getting even more cosmetics herself. Who else would it be? It's Fang, who in the end, despite it being close with Nia for the majority of the week, dominated the amount of appearances I saw her over the last few days. And it was not close in the final results, despite knowing how close it was for the first 4 or 5 days of this. Fang takes her place as Dead by Daylight's most popular survivor. Thank you guys for watching. I appreciate if you made it this far, and I'll see you in the next one.